Go for it.
Right, well, the Gemara we're having is, it's got to have 40 on the top right-hand corner, and it's 4 lines from the bottom. We'll count that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're dealing here with the limitations of the king. Although Israel wanted a king, nevertheless there are certain limitations, but there are also very big privileges because he's a king of Israel. And the Gemara here is explaining from the Mishnah, that he is allowed to break fences in order to make a path for himself, if it means that it's a better way for him to get to his own particular estate, get to the king's estate. Tana Rabbanan, the Gemara says, Eitzros Melachim, that all the treasures which are obtained from wars, the booty in other words, is Lamelech, it belongs to the king. That is all the treasures from the treasure house of the king who was conquered. And afterward, Bashar Bizar, Sheboizazin, but all the other remaining booty which they get from the various people which that were conquered, Machzeh Lamelech, half of that belongs to the king, or Machzeh Le'om, and half of it belongs to the people. The important thing to bear in mind is that the king can't just have everything. There are certain limitations, and the people also must be considered. Amalei, Abaya says L'Ravdimi to Ravdimi. He says V'amri Lo, others say L'Ravacha, to Ravacha. Brishlema, that is correct when you speak about the Oitzes Malachim Lamelech. When you speak about the treasures from the king who was conquered, that belongs to the king, yes, it's royal treasures. Or Chodemilsa, it's a natural thing for the royal treasures to belong to royalty, to keep that those in their proper place. Ella, Shad Bizar Sheboizazin. But when you speak about the remnant of the booty which was obtained from the enemies, Sheboizazin Machzeh Lamelech or Machzeh Le'om, and how do you know that we should give half of that to the king and half of it to the people? Let's understand this clearly. How do we know that? There is a verse, and we've got to turn over to up on the base. We go to Daf Chof Aleph. Vayimshechu lad Hashem lanogod letzedek, says the Gemara. It uses this verse in the book of Chronicles to explain that they anointed to the Lord for the prince and for Tzadok, who was Kohen Gadol, who was the high priest. So Makish Nogid letzedek, he is comparing here, the prince is comparing to the high priest. Ma Tzadok Machzeh, as in the case of the Kohen Gadol, he received half of the booty, Machzeh Le'ochav, and the other half he gave to his brothers. Is Afnogid Machzeh Loi Machzeh Le'ochav. So also the prince concerned, he also gives half is for himself and half of the booty for his brethren. Who are his brethren? The brethren of the king is the people. So they receive half. When we speak about the people here, of course, we're talking about the soldiers, the people who helped him in the army there. And for Tzadok Gufim Nolan, so the Gemara asks a very pertinent question. How do we know that this high priest Tzadok, that he received half of the booty? How do we know that? The Sanya, there's a brisa which says, Rabbi Omer, Rabbi says, in the Pasuk in the Chumash, Vayikra, V'hoyasol Aharon Olavanov, where you see there is a lechem ponim, you know the showbread is on a special table that once every week 12 loaves were put onto that table, you know, from each tribe. This was to feed the priests. Every week there was a medrash which says that they kept very, very fresh, extraordinarily. Must have been excellent bakers. Because in that case, half of it, it says here, half of it went to Aaron, Machzeh Le'Aaron, or Machzeh Levanov, and the other half was to his fellow priests. So because of this, there is an equalization in the fact that half also of the booty, in this case, that went to the high priest, and that's the reason why it went to the high priest, and the other half, of course, to the ordinary priests. Now that finishes that particular sugya, and now we go over to a new Mishnah. Now the Mishnah explains about the king. Lo yarbe lo noshim. He should not multiply women. That is to say, wives. Too many wives he shouldn't have. Elo shmona esrei. The only number limited in the Mishnah is 18. The maximum he should have is 18 wives. Shalom Aleichem, I didn't know that you... I see. Well, we'll put you on the register now. Thank you. Very nice.
Hi, Tiger. All the Muslims have 18 wives? Of course he's a
Welcome.
Muslim.
Have you got a copy? You've got a text?
Not giving away.
Good. Okay. So you see that the maximum number the Mishnah explains here, the Gemara will go into it in more detail, is that if a king marries, he can have a maximum of 18 wives. You never say the more women, then the more witchcraft. One's got to be careful. The Maimra, there's a statement that Rabbi Yehuda Dorish, that Rabbi Yehuda explains time of the reason to cry, the reason for the posuk. And Reb Shimon lo Dorish time to cry. But Reb Shimon, who is the other academy, who argues with him, he does not give any particular explanation of the verse because he takes it for granted that that's the amount and that's it. So the Gemara, the Mishnah in the Gemara explaining, say, we've really learned the reverse, in the inverse reverse proportion. The Sanya we've learned in a brass as follows. Almona, you take a widow. Ben shehi aniyah, whether she's poor, or ben shehi ashira, or whether she is rich. Ein memashkanin osa. Then you cannot take anything from her as a mashkan, a pledge, in regard to any loans or whatever you have to do to support her. Shneimar, it says apostle. The verse in Torah, lo sach boil beged almona. You must not, you've got to have a little bit of sympathy with the beggars, with the cloaks of a widow. Divrei Rabbi Shimon. Now Reb Shimon, that's Reb Yehuda says. Reb Shimon says, Ashira memashkenin osa. With regard to a one who is rich, an almana who is rich, you can't take a mashkin from her. Aniyah ain't mashkin osa. But if she's poor, then you can't take her beged, her cloak, as a pledge for whatever is required, a guarantee. And it's your duty to give it back to her. That is to say, if you take a pledge from a poor person, if it's the only thing that they've got to put on the back, when they come at night time, they've got to have some sort of a blanket or whatever it is, you've got to give it back to them. We are a people who have got Rahmanis, and we are B'nai Rahmanim. We are people who are merciful, and we always sympathize, and we must always remember that, to share these sorts of ethical principles in a way which will allow other people to live. Even though they may be in a disadvantaged position, we mustn't take advantage of their disadvantagement. We also masir shem ra'ah. And if you can give her a shem ra'ah in accordance with the neighbors. Why? Because you see, if you're going backwards and forwards with the beggar, backwards and forwards to the lady, then it's, for the shechita, for the neighborhood, it's an embarrassment, and it shouldn't be done. People got to be very careful. We amrin on, and we say, my koma hachi. It says, what does this mean, hachi koma? Mito she'ato memashkena, ato chayv lachzir olah. If you are in any form at all taking the mashkon, the pledge, then it is your duty to give it back to her. It says that. And one should be careful because it can't cause an embarrassment in the neighborhood. So almost, so I understand from this, Rabbi Yehuda Loi Dorish Timer, the cry, that Rabbi Yehuda does not explain clearly that verse. He doesn't derive, in other words, what I'm saying regarding a mashkin from the verse. And for Rabbi Shimon Dorish Timer, the cry. And yet, and Rabbi Shimon, he says he does, which has reversed what we said in the Mishnah just now. So the Gemara says, Timer Tekra Bi Alma in general, Rabbi Yehuda Lo Dorish Timer, but here is something different, he says. Shiny Hoche. The Meforish Timer Tekra, he explains here the result of this analysis, Matam, and then he asks this question. What is the reason Lo Yabra No Noshim? The reason why a king shall not multiply the number of wives. The answer is Mishum de Lo Yosel Levovi, because the more women you get, there's a possibility that they can turn you away from your religion to paganism. It happened in the time of Solomon, and he lost his credibility for a while. He made alliances with all sorts of people. With the Egyptian princess, and received Seklag from Pharaoh as a dowry, and the people objected.
So how many wives did he have?
Well, the point is that it's not a question of wives, there were concubines,
All right, concubines.
Also, which meant that the reason for these alliances was in order to maintain the empire of David, his father. He was not able to do that as a warrior, like his father, so he had to do this as a diplomat, and the only way he could do it was by making alliances through marriages with all these pagan tribes. It had an effect on the kingdom ultimately, though, unfortunately.
100% of them weren't Jewish.
So Reb Shimon Omelach. So Reb Shimon will say to you, Mirde, then let us see Be'alna in general. Dashin and time at the Korah, we say, if we say that the reason Im Cain, if so, the reason is only that the women can turn them away from his religion into some sort of paganism. Lichtau kra lo yad belo noshim v'lishteg. Then they should say that they don't have too many women and finished. No more after that. No, we are not Amina, says the Gemara, but I am of the belief, Matam, the reason is Lo Yarbe, the reason why it says Lo Yarbe, you shouldn't increase the number of 18 is Mishum de Lo Yosir, that they shouldn't turn away your religion. Lo Yosir, normally, what do we need the word Lo Yosir? Isn't that obvious from the verse itself? It says, Afilo Achas, or Masira Eslibo, even if he marries one of these women, and she can turn away a person from his heart, that is away from his religion, Harezu lo yisoenu, then he's not allowed to marry her. Elamoani Makayim lo yarbe, so how am I going to fulfill the words lo yarbe? He should not have more than 18. It says they are filu ki Abigail, even if they are like Abigail, who was a saintly woman. Hanishmona Esrei, that's later. But even if it's like a woman like Abigail, you've got 18 of no more than 18 finished. You can't have more than that. Now Abigail, she was, after her husband died, there are lots of psukim in the book of Samuel dealing with Abigail. It says in Shmuel, for example, Vatamaher Abigail Vatikach Mosayim Lechem Ushnayim, that she took 200 loaves of bread, and she took Shanaim Nivle Yayin, Bechomish Tain, and she took 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep, and Bechomish seems Kali, and also 5 seahs of flour, and smoky, and 100 bunches of grapes, of raisins, Messiah and development of figs, and Matosim al Achamarim, and she puts them all on the ass and she goes off. She was in the time of Elisha. But Abigail is David. Abigail, she saw David. Vatamahi Vatered Me'alachamor, and she got off her ass very, very quickly. Vatipul Lapi David al Poneho. and she fell on her face, Vishtacha, and bowed down to him to the ground. And then we had Tovi Abigail in Novel, and she came to her husband Novel, and he was a drunkard. And he was bebeis so b'mishtei HaMelech, and at one of the feasts of the Melech, Leib Novel Tovel Ovid, and Vahu Shikor, Od Me'od, he became a drunk. Well, Lohagida lay down a cotton girdle, had out a bucket, and he fell drunk, and they didn't tell her anything until the morning. And the servants of David, after he died, came to Abigail, the Carmelite, and said to her, David shlachnu elecha, David has sent us to you, lekachtik and Elisha, he wants to marry you. But Tamar v'tokam Abigail, and so Abigail hastened, v'tirkav al Chamash, she rode down to the house. And Chamash Narayah al Chos, and there were 5 young people who escorted her. And she went after these messengers of David, Batil Elisha, and she became his wife. So she was a saintly woman. And even though you may have 18 of such people, no more than 18 wives can you have. That's why it says, the Pasuk, that he should not have more than 18 wives. That's the reason why I put it in. Otherwise it would have been acceptable to know that he only has to have 18, but it means even if there are 18 righteous ones. But certainly can't marry even one if she's disloyal to her faith, to the Jewish faith. Now, Hanishmon Ezra, we're speaking about 18, Manolan, how do we know it? Why should we say 18 Dafka? It's not a number which is taken from the air. Everything that the Gemara has stated, it has got a reason. There is a verse, Vayevoldu LeDavid Bonim Bechevron, that sons were born to David while he was in Hebron. Now you know, dear friends, that David was king. He was crowned king, but he was not accepted by Saul. He was in Hebron. He was in Hebron for 7.5 years. Later, when he came to Jerusalem, then he became king of all Israel. And as king of Jerusalem and of all Israel, he was there for 33 years. Because altogether he was there 40 years, he was king. Now, in Hebron, Vayehi B'chayrei, his firstborn son was Amnon. Le'ached Am HaYisraelis. Married to Achinoam, he was from Jezreel. Mishnehu, and the second one was Caleb, Abigail, Ashes Novel Mali. That was, Caleb was the second one when Abigail was his wife. Ashlishi, Avshalom. The third one was Avshalom ben Maacha, of his wife Maacha. Vaharavi, and the fourth one, Adoniah ben Chagis. Adoniah, the son of Chagis. Ve'achamishi, Shvatya ben Avital. Or Shvatya, the son of Avital. Ve'hashishi, and the sixth, Yisroim le'eklash Tzdomit. To Yisroim, that's the sixth one, his name is Yisroim. To Eglah. Ele Yevoldu LeDavid, these were born to David Bechevron. V'kom Ali Navi, Imiat, and the Navi, Noson. So he says to him, and if that's not enough,